Hello, my name is Nathaniel. I'm the CEO of OSINT Industries, and today I'm going to take you through three different things. I'm going to demo our product, I'm going to explain how it works, what it does, and some stuff around data protection, which can be particularly important for law enforcement, non-profit, or journalistic investigators. Then I'm going to explain how you can register an account, how you can sign up. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the open source intelligence training that we offer as an organization. This should probably take about 10 minutes maximum, but we've tried to lay out this video so that you can jump around. If you just need to quickly set up accounts, you'll be able to jump to that part in the video. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through a real world case study. This is a news article. It's from Molfar. Molfar is an investigative media outlet based out of Ukraine. They do research into Russian military activity. So the reason I try and demo our product on Russia is because there's a lot of really good open source intelligence products that will pull information on Americans or Brits or Europeans all day long. But the second you kind of go outside this Western sphere of influence, you go to South America, you go to the Middle East, they kind of fall off. So one of the real strong points of our tooling is this complete global coverage, whether you want to pull information on Brits, Europeans, Americans, Canadians, or you want to go to trickier areas like the Middle East or Russia or China, our tooling will work great. Anyway, this article is all about the teenage branch of Wagner. Wagner is a Russian paramilitary organization, and this article is about this effort to set up these youth clubs to recruit kind of 16, 17, 18-year-olds into these organizations, and then eventually into this paramilitary organization at large. So what's interesting to us about this article is the journalists that have put this together, they've infiltrated this organization, these youth groups, and they've taken screenshots of their Telegram chats, but they've also identified the creators of these youth clubs, and they've published their email addresses and telephone numbers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this guy, one of the creators of the youth club's email and telephone number, throw it into our tooling, and show you what information we pull back. So our tooling is incredibly simple to use. You just type in an email or a telephone number, click on search, and what our tool is it's live intelligence. So what that means is there's no database behind. We haven't gone out and gathered a bunch of information about people. When you search something, it will go out in real time, collect a bunch of open source intelligence about that person, and then return it to you. So when we run this guy's email, it's going to pull back a few different types of data. I'm going to go over it in a weird order, but hopefully it will make sense at the end. So the first type of data we get back is what we call rich account information. So our tooling will tell you with as close to 100% certainty which accounts belong to which this selector, so email in this case. So this email has a Google account, and this is pulled direct from Google. So it's Google telling us he has an account, it's Google telling us this is the name on the account, it's Google telling us this is the picture, it's Google providing the links, it's chess.com telling us he's got an account there. So we can see he's got a bunch of accounts. We call this rich data because it's got usernames. You can see, he's using USSR_228 on his chess.com. He's put Uzbekistan. He's using a different username on Duolingo, and you can see the languages he's learning, and you've got links to the profile. So it's stuff that you can pivot off in your investigation. You can go further. You can click through the profiles. You can conduct kind of further investigations. On top of what we call rich data, we also have what we call account checkers. So sometimes the tooling will tell you, this email has an Apple account or a Call of Duty account, but we haven't been able to pull back any further information other than that the account exists. This happens for a variety of reasons, mostly limitations of open source intelligence. Our tooling won't go beyond what a user has publicly shared. So if someone's Instagram account is set to private, we won't be able to pull that information back. If, for example, on Apple, you don't really have a public profile, so we can pull back very limited data, which is the last 2 digits of their telephone number, and that's kind of it. If you're in law enforcement, this is a list of companies which are holding information on a target, so you can go, depending on where you are in the world, you can go subpoena a request from these companies, get further information, and you at least kind of know where to look to get that further information. So, depending on which rich accounts the person has here, you may also get back geographical data. So our tooling will tell you and map that out for you. So this guy's left a bunch of Google reviews. He's left them in St. Petersburg and up in the Leningrad Oblast. Sometimes Google reviews are interesting, sometimes not. Knowing that someone went to McDonald's in 2020 is maybe interesting. Whatever the language of the review will give you the original, so in this case Russian, and then everything gets translated to English. It's all date and timed, and we do our best to map this out on a timeline so you can see when accounts were created, when people were in data breaches, when they left different Google reviews, that type of stuff. The tooling works for every email address in the world. It also works for every telephone number in the world. You just need to use international formats. So if you're searching a British number, you would write +44 before it. If you're searching American, +1. This guy's Russian, so it's +7 at the beginning. It's going to pull back quite Russia-specific stuff for him. That's just kind of a product of how we use our phones. We tend to register on regional services with our phones and more international ones with our emails, but there is kind of overlap. Skype is obviously American and WhatsApp's American, but VK is like the Russian version of Facebook. You run a Chinese number, you'd expect WeChat, Baidu, QQ, that type of stuff. You run a Western number, you'd expect Snapchat, that type of thing. So I'm going to show you 2 more accounts just very quickly because they've got interesting data. This is my personal email. If you run my email, you're going to pull back a few different types of data that you haven't seen so far. So one is Yelp reviews. That's like Google reviews, but on Yelp. And then also Airbnb. So Airbnb is a really interesting data source. If you've stayed somewhere on Airbnb or you're hosting on Airbnb and you've left a review, or if you're hosting been reviewed, we'll be able to pull that information back. So you can see in July 2021, I stayed somewhere just southwest of London, and we're able to pull that information back and map it out. This type of data is obviously useful for the demographic that uses Airbnb, which tends to be wealthier. If you're looking into organized crime or you're looking into more international people, this can be an incredibly useful data source. Okay, I'll end on one final account. This is a guy named Arthur. He's a friend of mine. He's American, and Americans tend to have a lot more accounts. Arthur has Strava though. Strava is a sports fitness app. The idea of the app is that you can share your running routes, your hiking routes, your cycling routes with your friends. But incidentally, unless you change your settings, you're also sharing this with the rest of the world. So if someone's got Strava, you'll be able to pull back their running routes. You can see this guy lives just outside of Detroit, pretty obviously. He's got Google reviews like the Russian guy we looked at before. So you can see he went to a pest control place in 2022 and also left a review at a place where he was getting his boiler and in-floor heating replaced. So from the Google reviews, we can pretty easily see, okay, this guy lives in this area. And then we've got all of these Strava running routes, which are hyper granular GPS data. So Strava's been through an evolution in how it maps out people's routes, but for a lot of people, you'll be able to tell pretty instantly where they live. So just a couple of streets away from this pest control place, if we zoom in a bunch, we can see, this person's starting their runs just off the road a little bit in a house and then running onto the road. And so you can say, probably lives in this house, probably has access to this house. All this data is date and timed, probably cataloged in our platform. We've had a lot of success with American law enforcement looking at missing people, people that go missing on their running routes. It can be incredibly useful to have this, hyper granular GPS data where you can see essentially which side of the street someone's running on. So final point that's worth hitting on our tooling is we don't store any of the searches that you make or any of the search results that are returned. We do this for 2 reasons. The first one is GDPR. We're a British company and we still fall under the GDPR sphere of influence. And so GDPR says technically that if you don't have a reason to be storing data, you shouldn't be storing data. We don't have a reason to be holding on to what people are searching or the search results that are returned, so we don't store it. That's kind of semantics. Really more importantly, our tool is used by serious investigators. We've got over 3,000 law enforcement agencies. We've got non-profits working on cataloging war crimes, oftentimes reporting under hostile regimes. And so if we were storing what people were doing, it would be a big risk for you as a user, but also a pretty big risk for us if we would be a big target. So we don't store anything that you've searched or any of the search results that are returned. This is a little bit of a trade-off in terms of user experience. Some things you might expect to be there are not there, like a search history. You can't go back and say, what did I search yesterday? We don't store that data. You can pull the data locally. You've got Word doc, PDF, Excel, JSON, so you can hold it on your computer. But when you close that tab, the data's gone and you won't be able to get it back. Okay, that's pretty much a summary of the tooling. The next thing I'm going to show you is how you can gain access to the platform. So to get an account on OSINT Industries is pretty simple. You just click on sign in the top right. And then at the very bottom, it should say, don't have an account, sign up. If you click on the sign up, then you want to type in an email address and a password. You can then subscribe to our newsletter. You'll need to accept the terms of use, which can be found on our website, and click sign up. Once you've been through that process, you'll get a verification email. Sometimes it's a bit dodgy when you're entering the verification email, but persevere, keep trying to enter it, keep reprompting. Sometimes it will go to spam. You'll eventually be able to log into your account. So once you log in, it should say your email in the top right, also the number 0 next to it. If you're then a law enforcement, a journalist, or non-profit, you can claim free access to our tooling. The way you do that is you send an email to Nathaniel at osint.industries. If you're emailing from law enforcement, make sure you email from your law enforcement email. If you are a journalist, try and use your, for example, at BBC email to email. That will speed it up. If you are a freelancer, you may be prompted to require more information. Same kind of applies for non-profits. But that's pretty simple. I do my best to address my emails kind of every 2 days. So depending on when you email, we'll get you onboarded as quickly as possible and get you using the product very fast. So the final thing that I want to talk about is the open source intelligence training that we offer as an organization. We offer this training to both law enforcement agencies, government agencies, intelligence apparatus of the state, along with businesses of all sizes, including kind of startups and all the way up to Fortune 100 companies. Each sector obviously has very different needs in terms of their investigation capabilities, and so we're very kind of flexible on the training that we offer. We do have 3 different set courses, which is OSINT on individuals, Geo-OSINT, and then our child exploitation course. The child exploitation course is all around child online safeguarding, and we offer this course for free, kind of predominantly to police and law enforcement departments. When I say it's for free, it's at cost. We tend to do it in person, and you might have to help towards the cost of us delivering this, whether we have to travel somewhere or hire out a venue or something. But we do this as part of our contribution to OSINT for Good. A lot of child endangerment happens online, and so we want to help investigators that are working on that. The other open source intelligence training that we offer can range from courses, very kind of beginner courses looking at how you can buff out your open source intelligence capabilities. We tend to take a very practical approach, so we don't really want to do theoretical classes. We'll want to try and get a good number of students for a good period of time, normally 10 to 15 students over 3 days, preferably in person, and we will do kind of 1 day of a mixture of OPSEC and then beginning to get into open source intelligence training, and then day 2 really honing those, expanding the skill sets, and then day 3 sitting alongside officers or investigators and working on actual investigations that they are currently working on, trying to get our investigators to pass on the capabilities. We also have some specialized training courses. Those training courses are on disinformation campaigns. So we've worked with a lot of law enforcement departments on how they can understand, map, and disrupt foreign nation states' disinformation campaigns, particularly across Europe. So we have a specialized course on that. We also do blockchain investigations, which covers a lot of asset tracing stuff, and that kind of ties in nicely with finance. As mentioned before, we tend to take a bespoke approach. Oftentimes you'll be very interested in, say, Geo-int, and then maybe dark web actors as well. And so we can tailor and create a course that's very specific and orientated towards just the type of investigations that you're doing, so that we're not wasting our time training you up on something that's not interesting, and you are getting the maximum value out of it. If you're interested in the training, we have a part on our website where you can go and inquire, but you can also email me on an email which will appear on the next slide. Thank you very much.